and gentlemen. Come at me.
Venga mi caballeros.
Does everybody know that the Bivens brothers are vaguely bilingual? We're not.
It's not even vague.
There's no lingual.
No.
There's a unilingual.
I will give a quick plug to the app Duolingo,
Sure.
though, because I spent a full year. My goal was to do it every day for 5 minutes for an entire year leading up to when Elise and I got married in Mexico. And I got pretty okay at doing basic stuff, much better than I ever thought I would get. I got to the point where I could, if I was ordering food, I could definitely order like a champ, but I started to get a little less afraid of being responded to. That's always my biggest fear. Is
yes,
I can say something to somebody, but I'm not going to be able to know. Because people who I think it's a pretty general Spanish speakers of wherever you are from, they speak very fast.
Yes.
Whether you're Mexican or Puerto Rican or Spanish or wherever the hell, they talk fast and it's hard to follow. And then it's like, oh, but now they've asked me something I don't even know how to say anyway, even if I can understand it. So anyway, that was a longer plug than I wanted to. Let's go on, move on.
Hello, brother. Hello,
hey, brother. How's it going?
It's going well. It's a rainy Chicago day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a gray day here. We had a long rainy day on Saturday, which could be a segue to one of my topics to talk about today. There was a tropical storm that kind of came through, and so it literally rained all day, which made for a nice kind of cozy, semi-spooky October Halloween movie watching time.
It's a great time for...
Yeah.
It's a great time. Yeah, those are the best times. You have been watching... We can dive right into it. I know that you have been watching a few horror movies. We've watched one to two every single night.
Yeah.
Which is that's our normal October. It's usually like, it's usually a horror movie once a month at least. But October time pretty much is nonstop. We actually went to a party with friends that were showing horror movies, which is...
A party that for friends who were showing horror movies?
Yes, we went. Yes, they had these friends of ours are very into super kitschy and 70s style.
Okay.
Somewhat painful to watch and look at, but horror.
Like worse than Suspiria. Like
I don't Suspiria. They love
right. And I've actually never seen Suspiria, but like you mean like that style, which I think Suspiria is kind of. It's a B movie that is it's a cult movie that's kind of revered, if right? And I've never seen it, so I don't know. But when I think of like 70s weird, like that and the Lair of the White Worm, the Love Witch, I think that's called Bewitched. That's I Dream of Jimmy. What was the Bewitched theme?
What is the?
Oh, wow. Good work.
That thing? Yeah.
I'm a witch. I'm coming after you, bitch. I'm coming after your kids. Hope you don't care if they live or die. Because they're going to die. Yeah.
Because I'm a witch. Yeah.
The Love Witch. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember we were into The Love Boat. And we liked The Love Bug as kids. This was in 70s loving entertainment.
You could love everything.
But I've never heard of The Love Witch. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so your friends are into like Suspiria and of lower quality B movie stuff.
Yeah. So we started the day with Sleepaway Camp. Of course.
Oh God!
And then they
amazing.
Moved. Yeah, I know it is amazing. It actually is.
We could do a whole episode about that.
We might have to. Yeah. It is.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Well, it quote unquote holds up. I mean, yeah. Take that any way that you want to take it. It's it's a masterful thing. It is so weird. Of course, it's weird. But anyway,
for those of you who don't know Sleepaway Camp, who haven't seen it, treat yourself. It is a truly budget B movie that is 99% just clownish. It's so campy. It's like it's a clown show, and then in the last second of the movie, it's genuinely fucking frightening. Like chilling. It's chilling. It's so you just get sucker punched because you're like, what happened? Idea. So check that out. Our old friend Kevin Young turned us onto that and was obsessed. He wanted to do a Sleepaway Camp musical for years, and why haven't we done that? Well, God, that would be amazing.
Here's the thing that I had forgotten. Not only, I mean, did he love movies, that movie and movies of its ilk, of that ilk, but he actually used the, he sort of sampled the musical themes to Sleepaway Camp for his Jump Little Children horror short.
Suburban Mutilator Nightmare. Yeah. Yeah. It's very Sleepaway Camp. I didn't even realize how Sleepaway Camp it is. All those things that he was telling us to do, like the like the ward's hand in the air just shaking. It's right out of Sleepaway Camp. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing to watch. Actually, I will say Sleepaway Camp has incredible makeup effects. Really, it's really far and above the best thing about the movie. It's really intense. The only effect I can really remember is doesn't James Earl Jones's brother get like his head melted or something?
That's it's not the brother. It's another chef. It's another cook at the camp who is just unabashedly a pedophile. Like the first 3 seconds of dialogue with him, he's talking about. I mean, it's horrific. I can't even repeat it. I can't repeat it. I wouldn't want to repeat it in any world. But we
should stop talking about it.
It's horrific. Yeah, but he gets burned. He gets his comeuppance.
Good. Good. That's where you belong, you jerk.
Yeah, Jared. So what ones did you give a shot to horror movies?
We did one just kind of fluffy, fun one for Elise doesn't like horror movies really at all. Right. And as you know, we've already discussed, my horror movie tastes have changed over the years. I used to. My general rule was kind of like anything but torture porn. That never did it for me. But nowadays, like if it's true, like we've already discussed this, but if it's truly horrific, if I'm starting to get sad about someone's story, then I'm hard. Or if it's like extreme gore and it's very visceral and real. If it's not fun, it doesn't have to be campy like Sleepaway Camp, but Scream is a great example. If it's not something like that, then I'm not as into it these days. So anyway, Elise was kind of just lounging in bed in the early morning, and I was making breakfast like I normally do. And I said, well, maybe I can lure her down here with the prospect of watching one of her favorite movies, which is Hocus Pocus from the early 90s, 1993.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
I'd seen parts of it, I guess, but I'd never seen it either. And it's fun. I read a review of it later. It got panned. Like nobody, I don't think anyone liked it at the time, but it's since become a cult classic. Another movie that I'm surprised they haven't turned into a musical, considering there's musical numbers with Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker. Oh. Both. Yeah, they have like a little song moment.
That is a surprise.
I know. It was Sarah Jessica Parker pre-Sex and the City. Mm-hmm. Maybe the best thing she ever did. I mean, honestly, it's like, it feels like ever since Sex and the City, she's just done that.
Yes.
She's kind of done that role. And this, she just got to camp it up and have fun. So it's a Disney movie. It's just straight up for kids. Mm-hmm. It's light and fun and silly and, that's great. And then as the day wore on, I decided to take you up on your suggestion. A few weeks ago, you said to check out Uncanny Annie, thus the discussion about fun horror that's not too visceral. Right. And so I watched that. We watched that. And that is from the Hulu horror anthology series. I guess it's an anthology, Into the Dark.
Into the Dark.
We liked it. It was fun. It was. I would describe it as like a really well done student film.
Yes. I think all of them of that series, the Into the Dark series, are like this. In fact, Lindsay says it really would have been a much, much, much better compilation anthology if it had just been something like Black...
an episode.
Yeah,
right.
An episode.
Yeah. It didn't need to be 2 hours, yeah.
No.
The setup was a little more fun than the execution of it, so to pardon the pun. Yeah. For the setup, for those of you who've never seen Uncanny Annie, the premise is there are a group of friends, 5 or 6 friends who have gathered on Halloween. They're college kids. And a year ago on that day, one of the people in their group died. And so they've come back while everyone else is out kind of partying and drinking and being stupid. They decided to just spend the night at home because their friend liked to play games and, was more of a nerdy type of guy. So they came together to play a game to honor him. And so I thought that's a nice kind of, it's a break from the Scream model or whatever, the horny teen model, which give me horny teens. That's fine. We're horny college kids. Don't give me horny teens. That's weird. That's creepy. But whatever, college kids, that's breaking away from that model and just having them they've come together for a somber kind of thing and they're just honoring their friend.
There was some really fun, realistic dialogue going on, I thought.
Yeah.
Really natural acting and that made it kind of fun.
Yeah, the setup, and that's where I think the movie was its best. The setup was really good. They didn't have a specific game in mind to play. They just go down to the basement and pick out from a stack of board games that happen to be down there. And the one that they end up choosing is Uncanny Annie, which ends up being a lot more than they bargained for. So I'd say the weakest part was the girl who played Uncanny Annie.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah.
If they had made her maybe 10 years younger than that instead of a woman, or that actor should have just been portraying her own age instead of trying to act like she was 12 years old.
Yeah.
Could have played up the creepiness.
Yeah.
She was trying too hard, and it kind of took away all of the spooky stuff was not I wanted it to be fun, but I wanted there to be a little bit of scariness, right? And the scary stuff wasn't that scary.
No.
So, but it was fun. It was a kind of an interesting, different. It was creative, which I appreciated, and that's really it. It's not too complicated.
Right. You then tried to watch The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Yeah, so I was texting with Lindsay and saying, okay, which of the other Into the Darks are good, or do you have something that you like better than that outside of Hulu? And she recommended The Autopsy of Jane Doe and one other. And Autopsy of Jane Doe sounded interesting. I love Brian Cox and Emil Hirsch. I mean, that's already kind of a stellar cast. And we started it, and it was very graphic right off the bat. Literally the first scene is just this, blood splattered crime scene. And then they go into, after that's done, they go into the autopsy, into the morgue where this father and son team are performing an autopsy. And it's just, I was trying to eat, they're scooping out eyeballs. Oh, and it just felt a little too visceral than what we were in the mood for. Mm-hmm. So we went back to Lindsay's other Into the Dark suggestion, which was I'm just f***ing with you, or I'm just bleeping with you. be sure and bleep that out. I'm just f***ing with you, and I really liked that one.
Yeah. I really like the best one of all of them, honestly.
That's what Lindsay said too. Yeah. They didn't stick the ending.
Nah.
They didn't stick the ending, but in terms of suspense plus humor plus another kind of creative idea that I hadn't really seen before, it was really good.
Yeah, I'm glad that you liked it. We liked it too. And Autopsy, for other people who are listening and start the movie when they're not eating, it does start off strong, but it immediately becomes about something It has a great. It's really fantastic. It does. Yeah. It's called The Autopsy of Jane Doe, and I was like, I wasn't sure why she was recommending that to you, but honestly, the worst parts are in the first bit, and then it becomes about something else, which I think is kind of cool. So yeah, maybe for the future. I'll say real quick that we watched a movie called Spring. It's a movie by the same people who did Resolution and The Endless, and we watched that last night. It also had a great beginning, a great interesting concept, and then went. Yeah, a lot of them do. So hard. It's very hard. One of Bradley Cooper's first films called My Little Eye, which is really interesting because I think it was also one of the first films to use that sort of edgy meaning terrible film quality. It's inspired by the Big Brother TV show in England. And the concept is a bunch of 20-year-olds with, mental issues living in a home together, kind of on watch, like on the internet 24. Oh, I think I've seen this. Yeah. I think I've seen this. Yeah. And they just start to turn on each other. Yeah. I mean, well, the concept of where they think they are and then where they actually are is very. Yeah. That's fun. It's fun. I think I've seen this a long time ago. Yeah. This was Bradley. Oh wow! This is Bradley Cooper's first film. I don't know about first, but it's one of the. I think it was probably the same time as Alias, which most people forget that he's in. But it was around that same time. And interesting. Yeah. Have you guys watched The Midnight Meat Train, or as I like to call it, The Midnight Meat Train? No, what are you talking about? we took a chance on that the other day. That's another Bradley Cooper horror film. I think it's the Hellraiser guy. What's his name? The guy who wrote Hellraiser, Dag Nabbit, famous writer. It's seemingly earlier Bradley Cooper, but it's like two movies in one. There's like a really good mystery about a dude who's a photographer. He's trying to make it as an artist, and he's trying to find deep subject matter to portray. And he kind of stumbles into this kind of dark mystery that's going on in New York, or I think it's New York where he lives. And then it'll cut to these scenes where these people who end up on this subway train late at night just get mutilated by Vinny. You know who Vinny Jones is? You'd know him. He was in, I think, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He's like a famous, brutish British actor. He played Juggernaut in, I think, X-Men 3. Anyway, so he plays this guy who's just has a big old hammer or something and just messes people up. But it's when he attacks them, they've used this super weird, you think that the overuse of CGI is bad now. At least the CGI is good. Like in this movie, it's just embarrassingly, like he'll whack someone in the head and their eyeball will pop out, and it's just so clearly bad CGI. It's just like two different weird movies. We didn't finish it. Yeah. So I can go ahead and tell you, maybe go ahead and skip that one. Skip it. Yeah. Sorry. Meat Train. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a pretty good spooky movie rundown. I wish I could say some that have been golden. And I've seen some golden ones, but I think we've already talked about them. None this week, but you never know. The month is almost over, though. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. What else? I mean, I guess while we're on that, I will say that this morning, not knowing whether you had or had not watched this, but of course, you and I have both been very excited about Watchmen coming out, and I watched half of it, and then I didn't make it, and so far I don't know what's happening, but I really like it. Really like it. I have no idea. So I'm captivated instantly. People are going to, they're going to listen to this and go polarizing. I'm sure it's polarizing. It from what I can tell, immediately has very little to do with the comic, or only in that it's a alternate universe of a future. Not even a future. It's an alternate universe period where the Watchmen existed, because in the first half hour you see Dr. Manhattan on Mars, but then there's all these cults. There's a lot of stuff. Again, half of it, so I can't talk too much. But there's something to do with cops needing to cover their faces. So like it's almost like the police force have to become some sort of costume hero in some way. And then there's this entire racial element that I don't know what's happening. There's really intense, but I'm excited. I hope that it ends up good. And if it does, then we'll talk about it here, but I'm curious. I don't mind if they go out on a limb. I don't mind if they change the world. I don't need to see the Watchmen as far as those characters. I'm not married to them. I would be happy if it was just a show based on the milieu. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's, from my understanding, first of all, for anyone out there who's like, what's a Watchmen? You probably remember the movie from a few years ago, but it's a comic book, one of the kind of most highly regarded graphic novels, created in the 80s by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. And it stretched the genre because it was more than just sequential art in issues. There was backstory. There was, at the end of every issue, there was usually some kind of prose, some kind of deeper dive into the characters, stuff that you just didn't ever see in comics before. And it was truly groundbreaking stuff. The writer, Alan Moore, is very famously kind of a grumpy dude who he's never been in support of anything that's been adapted from his comics. He doesn't believe that, like, his stance is, I created it for comics, that's the medium that I chose. It's not meant to be seen as a movie. So it's not how it was conceived. And I mean, respect, like you can't really argue with that.
Nope.
It's briefly, Watchmen is about kind of a group of superheroes in the 80s, and they're all the kind of the basic mysteries that they're kind of being picked off one by one by someone no one really knows what's happening. And there's much larger mystery to that. I can't really go into the whole thing. It's very, very dense. And so this show, like you were saying, is from what I understand, it's fast forwarding to now. Yeah. And it's really only has a handful, if even, of the major characters from Watchmen. So there's Ozymandias, who was a young man in the 80s. He's now portrayed by Jeremy Irons. Is that right?
I haven't gotten that far.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's correct. And then Dr. Manhattan, who was truly in the Watchmen universe the only supernatural superhero. He's the only one who has supernatural powers. Everybody else is just kind of more of like a Batman character, where they're vigilantes. Yeah. And so, but Dr. Manhattan's a character, and then they're definitely playing off of another character, Rorschach, who is maybe the coolest character in Watchmen, and kind of an ultra violent creep, but with a very refined sense of right and wrong. Whether or not you agree with his version of right or wrong is up to you, but it looks like there's a group in this new timeline that is very much inspired by what Rorschach stood for. They're kind of, maybe they're vigilantes. I don't know. Yeah. I've been nervous about watching it because it's. I'm like you. I'm not precious with the comic. Like I'm open to it, but I also don't want it to suck.
We'll reconvene on that.
We'll reconvene. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to know that you had an initial good impression.
Yes, initial impression is I can't wait to finish the episode.
Okay. Yeah. Well, great. Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. See ya. Bye.
So I think maybe the main topic we're going to get to today is probably going to be talking about our friends Shovel and Rope. Probably Shovels and Rope, right?
Well, I had the idea that we could do either one of two things or two of two things. we could share something that we've each done
Yeah.
in our respective cities, because since the kind of the point of this show is that we don't live in the same town anymore.
Right.
You got to see Shovels and Rope at the Vic Theater in Chicago last week. I went to go see a show called MacBeth.
Cool.
Not to be confused with Macbeth.
Right.
Or actually, it is to be confused with the show Macbeth, because it is. But I can talk about what the twist is there, because it's really interesting. So we can share that with each other.
Yep.
The other idea, the idea number 2 that we can do now or next week or whatever, is we could kind of do a spin on our D6 idea and listen to a local band to each town that we've discovered. And my inspiration for that was I discovered a local band kind of by accident this last week that I thought was really great. And if you have someone to nominate from Chicago that you may not have ever heard before but thought was cool or didn't think was cool, we can kind of listen to them and see what we think.
I love this idea.
Those are my ideas, kind of, just representing the places where we live, since, you don't live here and I don't live there.
Get to know us. Get to know our city.
For now, why don't you just tell me about Showrow?
Showrow? Yeah. So I think after a decade and a half or so of being on the road and being in music venues for a living, it's kind of difficult to get me out of the house to go see music. I usually have a great time when I do. I enjoy it. I appreciate it, but it's just tough. And I kind of heard it. I sort of hurt my back in the last couple of weeks, so I've been a little hobbling a little bit anyway. But it has been so long since I've seen Shovels and Rope play live, and their new album On Blood that came out.
By Blood.
Sorry, By Blood. Thank you. By Blood that came out 6 months ago or so.
It's a while back.
They explain why, that they're just sort of now going on tour, but I'll get to it in a second. But I really enjoyed that album. I just really love it. It's kind of the one that I've been listening to the most. It is absolutely them. It's definitely Cary and Michael, but it's a nice stretch on both sides. It's a little bit more synth. It's a little harder, and then it's also a little more sort of it's a little more stepping into the past at the same time. Not acoustic, but sort of there's sort of a slight rockabilly thing going on every once in a while, a little doo-wop even. It's like a doo-wop element here and there. Well,
Cary's always been into, I think she's always wanted to be in the Supremes.
Yeah, I could,
right?
Yes.
Or a band like that.
Like the Supremes, sure.
The Ronettes or something. Mm-hmm. I think she's always wanted to, at least I remember playing with her, like her, wanting to add those elements in since as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
So she has.
So she has, and so I've really enjoyed By Blood, and I said, okay, how are they going to pull it off live? So I went with friends, went to the Vic Theater in Chicago, which is both one of my least favorite and favorite venues in Chicago because my favorite because that's where I met Lindsay, my wife, and so it's always going to have a warm spot, but it's so nasty, man. The Vic is just, bless his heart, it's just so nasty. I just, like, we walk in and we're frisked at the door, check for weapons. I get it, but like really frisked, like very
that's
intense.
Good though, like in this day and age, like that.
I know you need it. I know,
but it's the same. It's the same. I remember feeling that at the Metro, and maybe Metro and Vic are owned by the same people, but their security is very intense and always has been. Yeah. So
yes, it's safety, great. Everybody in there felt very safe, and I do appreciate that. I'm not saying that I don't, but then when you get in, it's just kind of like a little rundown, a little grimy.
Yeah.
Sound isn't amazing, but took seats. It was not as full. They were a little disappointed. I talked to them afterwards, and they were a little disappointed at the turnout, a little soft, and yet they. Oh yeah. Yeah, it wasn't full. Definitely, it was.
How big is the Vic? Couple grand.
That's a really good question. I don't actually know.
I'll find out.
You find out, but it was a little soft. The balcony wasn't full, and you could, it wasn't packed down at the bottom. And they made the decision to wait for touring for a couple of reasons. Number one, they were kind of hoping that it would be, it would give fans a chance to learn the songs, so that everything isn't just sort of when you come out, like people would have lived with the album for a while, which I think is a great idea. We certainly experienced that last year when people get to a new song and they're like, I don't know, So there's that. But then, of course, they had a baby, a new little boy, and
Oscar,
Oskar, and I didn't get to meet Oscar. I wanted to, but it was already quiet time by the time I got to the bus. But they jumped on the tour bus 3 months after he was born.
Damn.
Still, I know. I was like, dude.
They are hardcore.
They're so hardcore, but they were so great.
Yeah.
They were so great. And it's that, it's hard for me. And I told him this. I was like, I'm up there and I'm enjoying. It's tricky with my variable attention, is enjoying the songs, the new songs, and the experience as a musician, trying to like analyze that and enjoy that, and then just being flooded, just endlessly flooded with memories about both of them, about. Yeah. Meeting Cary Ann for the first time, meeting Michael for the first time, all the stories, and trying to like everything they said. When you know somebody, and I don't know, it was nice. It was really nice, and it was so fun. I'm always so amazed. You recently did an interview with Charleston newspaper, Post and Courier, and you mentioned a couple of these things, but just the fact that at one point the Cary Ann Hearst that we knew said, I want to be, live on a porch and just have babies. Like, he didn't want to live on a porch. I want to, sit on a porch.
Not her porch.
I want to sit on a porch.
She's going to show up on your porch and live there.
Well, I mean, that would be a new way of doing it.
It's a new kind of Halloween.
Ding dong. Hi. What's your... Hi. Anyway, I have a baby. I'm going to just hang out on your porch. So, sit on the porch and have babies is what she, said. And yet no one wanted her to do that immediately, right? Like, we wanted to see her be the rock star that she is. And I love seeing them and seeing the scrappiness that is still there. It's still like, it was there with the Bard Angels. It's there, it was there with the what were they called? The Boondocks? The first band that we saw them.
The Boonies?
The Boonies.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think you're right. Boonies.
I think so.
Which is where I saw them first, and saw her first, and then Bard Angels. This scrappiness, which is fun, because she has actually learned a lot of instruments in the last 10 years, right?
Dude, she's gotten really good.
Especially on guitar, like really great.
Really good. Yeah, very accomplished.
But they're playing drums, and then, Michael is an incredible musician of all the things. Guitar, he's great at a lot of mandolin, this keyboard stuff. So they're traveling with all these instruments now and just jumping around, even, I feel, more than they even have been. But I don't know, it's just so fun to see an evolution of someone that has always inspired you, people that you've always been inspired by, and how they've been able to pull off these songs live. It's just really fantastic. They totally are killing it. And I think that if anybody is on the fence about seeing Shovels and Rope, and maybe even have seen them in the past and thought, oh, okay, that's their routine. That's the husband wife people that they sing all the songs and they just stare at each other the whole time. Well, it is some of that, but it's more now. It's really in their bones. I think more than I've ever seen. It's like they are professional. Not that they haven't, but you know what I'm saying. It's like it feels really, really grounded and solid to me, even with that
seems like
beautiful scrappiness.
Yeah, it seems like they've just risen to the success that they've worked so hard for.
Yeah.
And as they've grown, they've grown as musicians and performers. They actually haven't been in the Atlanta area at a regular venue. They've done festivals and stuff around here, which, I don't, it's so hard to go to festivals.
Yeah.
For me. So I haven't seen them since, I guess the last time I would have saw them was at a festival, was at High Water.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
And before that was probably in Chicago, at the Metro, I think, one time. So, yeah, I know it always gives you hope for humanity when people who are as talented and work as hard as they do get the success that they deserve.
Yeah.
And in this industry, it's
such a lame.
It's just not always that way. There's people, so many people who. The films were a great example. Like, they were incredibly hardworking and incredibly talented, and their records were great. And they didn't get the success that I thought they deserved. Slow Runner, Michael Flynn, all these, bands. And granted, we're friends with these people, so we feel more strongly. But it's so great to see people who like them, who are also just on top of being talented. And talented, I think, it's actually a word I don't love, because I think Cary is a prodigy to a certain extent.
Sure.
She was born with the voice that she has, but she's cultivated that. So anyway, these people who are, as, for lack of a better word, talented, as hardworking, but they're also just so authentic.
I have a Chicago. It is. I have a Chicago friend that is their biggest fan. I met her. We actually took an improv class together, and she
like a Stan fan.
A Stan fan? What?
Stan, like Eminem and Stan Stalker fan.
Well, no. She's very sweet, and we met in an improv class, and she actually said, "Are you in Jump Little Children?" But the way that she knew that I was in Jump Little Children was because she was obsessed with Shovels and Rope, found out about Cabaret Kiki, then found out about Jump Little Children through Cabaret Kiki.
Wow.
So this is the first time that Emily got to meet Cary and Michael, and she was so worried about, she's like, all I could say was, "You're my favorite band," and I felt so stupid. And I said, "Look, man, number one, no band that I've ever met minds when you say things like that. But secondly, these are people that really appreciate that, and they're good, and when you're talking to them, it's a heartfelt thing, and their responses are heartfelt. Yeah. And Cary got what she wanted. She not only gets to be a rock star, but then she gets to go back to the bus and have quiet time with the kids. It's like, oh man, it's just a dream. It's a dream. So I love it so much.
Nobody respects that more than you and me, because that's what our mom did. Yeah. Totally. she was, she wasn't going to give up the love of her creative life to just be a mom. She wanted to be a mom, but she didn't want to stop acting. She didn't want to stop learning. So she took us to Wake Forest when she went back to school. She took us to shows that she was directing. She took us to shows that she was in, and she put us in shows that she was in. Yeah. So it's so awesome to see. I mean, just to think back to the conversations at Fluids and seeing Cary Ann up there and playing with Cary Ann there and hearing her talk about, like, gosh, I don't know, is this the life that I want? And that's a great question to ask when you're playing at Fluids, right? Because well, what I mean is, like, you don't know, you don't have any guarantee that your career is going to move past that point, that phase, right? Yeah. That you're going to be playing in a dive bar. Like, why? That's not a dream that I aspire to, like playing in dive bars around the world. And I totally get why Cary Ann felt like, God, is this what I want?
Right.
Don't I want to have babies and sing to them on the front porch? Doesn't that sound great? And it does. But people like her and Michael come along once in a lifetime, and to see them not pursue it feels criminal. So to see them like win and take their kids and like not sacrifice anything, like, we're going to do this and we're going to have kids and we're going to tour and they're going to come with us and they're going to learn like how cool the world is, and see their kids are going to grow up seeing, watching through the lens of their parents being creative people and meeting all kinds of people. I don't know. It's just, they're heroes. They're definitely heroes. For sure. And
a disclaimer, of course, there's nothing wrong with just being a mother or just being a father, by the way. But
no, that is equally as heroic.
It is
for sure when you do it well.
Heroic. Right.
When you do it well. If you suck, then you're not a hero. You're a bastard.
I mean, mostly, what is it that you want? What is it that you want to do? And if that is your dream, then that should be your dream, and you should be able to have that. And same thing with Cary and Michael. They should be able to, and I think a lot of parents could learn from them. I have talked to parents that are like, oh, well, I'll never be traveling again. I'll never be, now that we're having, I was like, well, I just don't believe that. And actually here's some proof that you can kind of just be true to yourself. What do you want? What do you want?
What do you want for nothing?
Brass ring. So so that's Shovels and Rope at the Vic Theater. Brother, what's MacBeth?
MacBeth. So I guess a couple of weeks ago, I went to go see the show Macbeth, and that's slightly different from the show Macbeth by William Shakespeare. There's actually a slash through Mac and Beth, and the reason for that is this is an adaptation by Erica Schmidt, who I was not aware of before the production, but she's Peter Dinklage's wife, which I'm sure she probably, maybe she doesn't really care to be, that's how she's identified. Oh yeah, it's Peter Dinklage's wife, but she's married to Peter Dinklage, which is just a cool fact, I guess. Doesn't really have any bearing on the fact that she made a really awesome adaptation of Macbeth. And the premise is that there are a group of girls, Catholic high school girls, who have taken the show Macbeth, and they found a spot out in the woods outside of their school, and they're just kind of obsessively performing it for themselves. They've learned it and they've performed it. And so the show is really just Shakespeare's language. It's 99.9% just Shakespeare, but it's very specifically adapted so that the cast are all women portraying high school girls in a Catholic school. Like, all of this is very specific. There's some scripted moments where the kids interact with a smartphone or have a certain kind of reaction, but there's not really any extra dialogue, maybe one or two moments, but it's primarily Shakespeare, but it's set in this way so that you are watching Macbeth, the story, through the lens of these girls who have kind of become obsessed with this dark story. And things kind of start to go off the rails towards the end. If you're not familiar with the story of Macbeth, which I had actually forgotten quite a lot about it, it's very dark, a lot of murder, a lot of backstabbing, both figurative and literal, and it gets ugly, it gets bloody, it doesn't have a good ending. And so the challenge was for the director, who was my neighbor, Jen Acker, who was an amazing singer, an amazing actor. She and her husband, Brandon, both really talented. Again, there's that word, talented actors and singers, and just awesome people. But she did a really amazing job of writing this line where these girls are acting like girls. You 100% believe that they are high school girls, and the way that they're interpreting Shakespeare's language is in a very modern tone, and yet the story of Macbeth is crystal clear. So you're kind of laughing at their interpretation of it and fully engaged in the story of Macbeth at the same time.
Wow.
And I talked to Jen a little bit about that, and she was saying, like, yeah, that was the thing to really work on the most, was how do we ride that so that you totally get these are kids, but you also get that there's the show. So in her director's notes, and if you've never seen a play before, which you might not have, oftentimes in the program there'll be the director will write a few paragraphs about the process, the creative process working on the show, or just what inspired them. And in this case, Jen pointed to something that I don't know if Erica Schmidt, intentionally was referencing or if it was just something that Jen picked up on. But she pointed back to, do you remember those 3 girls who went off into the woods a few years ago, and 2 of them were obsessed with the Slender Man?
Yes.
And this is real. This has happened, and this is not a story. This has really happened.
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, the Slender Man is kind of a urban legend for the internet age. It was created online. The Slender Man as a kind of a creepy, long-limbed dude. But these 2 girls kind of discovered this. I guess you can go and find just stories that almost like fan fiction that people have written either about Slender Man or other creepy things. CreepyPasta is where he was. CreepyPasta.com, I think, is where you can find the origins of Slender Man. Anyway, they became obsessed with this character, and they lured a friend or acquaintance of theirs out into the woods near their homes or school, and they stabbed her multiple times. And she lived. They left her for dead out in the woods, but she was able to crawl to the road, and I think she survived. So thank goodness for that. But so if that kind of gives you a little bit of insight as to what's going on in this show. Yeah, like it gets dark.
What if MacBeth was creepypasta story?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, if you live in the Atlanta area, the theater is called Synchronicity. And it's running through this weekend, October 27th. You can get tickets at synchrotheater.com. That's synchrotheatre.com/tickets/buy BUY/Mac-Beth.
I'll put those in the
comments. Put that link in the commenters.
And the notes.
Treat yourself. It's a little black box theater, as they call it, in storefront theater in Chicago. It's small. It's intimate. The actors are all just kick-ass. Wow. They're all amazing. They're so good. Especially the woman who played Lady Macbeth was just so damn good. And I apologize. I don't know any of their names offhand. But I really wish you could see it. I would put it up against anything, any storefront theater I've seen in Chicago. It was really, really terrific.
That's so great.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Go theater. Go
theater. Go theater. Have a party. Come on. It's your birthday.
Do what you're doing. Keep doing it. Don't stop. Well, brother, this has been a very dense, but I think very personal and yet informative little hour that we spent together. I love your Are You Local music idea. So I think we should play with that for next week. You already have one, so we'll save that. Maybe we'll save her for next week's, and I'll go listen to some Chicago jams. Yeah, stumbled across it doesn't matter how you find them. I found out about this girl because again I had a neighbor whose daughter is dating one of the guitar player in the band, and so we just got in a conversation. So however you stumble across it doesn't matter. But if you find someone from Chicago that you like or don't care for that much, that's okay. Sure. But I think that'll be fun. We're trying to share the culture of our home abodes. And beyond. So you check out Watchmen. 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 Yeah. Watchmen. I'll try to sneak it in between episodes of Veronica Mars, which I still want to watch more than anything else. I know, man. Where are you now? I'm season like 3. 2 or 3 episodes into season 3. Right. And it definitely has the sophomore college. Yeah. It's like. Yeah, it's got that Buffy. Not as bad. Like as Buffy in college was very jarring. It was jarring. It was like, ooh, what happened? Oh, Joss is gone. Yeah, he does not care. And this doesn't have that, but it's okay. Yeah, she just feels a little different. Like her character feels a little angrier or something, and maybe maybe she is. Yeah, maybe she's like.
she's had enough friends who've been raped, or she's been raped enough herself,
right?
And she's actually pissed off, and she's still funny, but she's not as sweet. Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't remember that, but the good news is that you go and I went into season 3 knowing that it was the last one. So anything that was a little bit less than stellar, I was like, oh, because it's the last season. But you are lucky for the fact that it is not your last season. So you're going to breeze right on through to season 4, which I think is one of the best ones. So,
exciting.
Yeah. And the movie, I guess you should watch the movie, but not as good. But anyway, you'll still have so much more Veronica Mars to enjoy for, probably a few months to come.
It's tough to beat. I'll give Watchmen a try, but it's tough to beat.
I get it. All right. Well, I sure do love you, brother.
I love you, brother. Miss you.
Miss you too. We'll talk.
As always, brought to you by BivBrosCreative.com.
Yes.
If you like the internet, we'll find a home. We'll build a home for you there. If you don't like the internet, if you're like us and you hate the internet,
that is a problem.
Don't call us.
Don't just keep it to yourself, people. Yeah, keep the internet to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, as always, if you have anything that you want nerdy, nerdy doesn't mean comic book superheroes. Nerdy is whatever you're into. And you want Matt and I to take a look at it, listen to it, watch it, read it. Join us on Facebook. Let us know what you think.
Facebook /Bivens Brothers will do the trick.
Yeah, and just make a comment there.
Comment. Write your words.
Tweet at us. Do we have a tweeter?
We do have a tweeter. It is Bivens Brothers at Bivens Brothers. Yeah.
Tweet at us. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should be tweeting more since Facebook is just blatantly like we don't care about democracy. You.
But then again, the democracy is
democracy doesn't care about democracy.
Yes, the part that we like least about is actually on Twitter. Anyway, yes, Twitter's fine. We should pick it up. Yeah, pick it up, everybody.
Whatever your tools of social fun are, just come and get us and leave a note, and we'll all have fun together.
We will.
All right, so we know our homework for next week.
Homework. Until then.
Okay, love you, brother.
Love you too. Cheers.
Come on in and have a good old time. Have a fun time with two bros. We're out.